Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to understand or how to manage an abusive female psychopath. I mean, that's a big question. We do, of course, take that up and tackle that here on the channel. One important thing, if you're talking about someone who is abusive or who is psychopathic, I would say one of the most important things to manage is really the understanding of your vision and your values. Really, there oftentimes is a corrosion or a disruption of these. A psychopath will tend to hurt others just for the thrill of seeing them hurt. So just like you might, get a rise out of seeing somebody laugh or smile, a psychopath has an insidious pleasure, that involves really taking that sort of pleasure when others are hurting, struggling, concerned, ruined, thrown in the trenches, freaking out, losing it all, have given up their right arm and their left leg for this other individual. So there really oftentimes becomes a sublimation or a substitution with satisfying and adhering to the psychopath and their psychopathic values, which are to turn you against yourself. So unfortunately, this is what they do. And not all, are incarcerated. I mean, there's psychopaths who are very highly functioning, highly intelligent, high earners. So you have to understand that this can be across all age groups, ethnic groups, income strata, professional strata, you name it. This is just a type of person who might have an antisocial personality disorder. So antisocial meaning sort of they're cold and callous. They don't really have emotions, including that of fear. So when they see everybody else like being happy or being sad, to them it's like, what a waste of time. Why would you get caught up in those emotions? All that does is slow you down. There's other things to do. There's other things to conquer, and so this is really how a psychopath will maneuver. Part of that I would say is the entrainment or sort of thinking like a psychopath. This is the danger of a psychopathic relationship. And really, because they're devoid of emotions, because they're devoid of stress, oftentimes as a psychopath might profess to you, or they might just tell you, I have a high threshold for pain. So, and also, for stress. So if you see, someone who is psychopathic, who has, lost a child, lost a dog, has upset somebody, most things that would throw people into an emotional roller coaster. They're just cool as a cucumber. They haven't flinched a muscle. They're just as graceful as they want to be. And so to them, this is like an efficiency. So I think in their mind, they kind of think that they feel that they are not encumbered or burdened or held back by quote unquote silly emotions such as joy, happiness, pride, togetherness, patriotism, love, freedom, like all those abstracts. So, it's important to understand if you want to stop and manage the abusiveness, realize that they're dealing because of their wiring and the structures of their brain, the inactivity in the amygdala, the inactivity really in the prefrontal cortex, their inability really where the morality, judgment, right or wrong, and that sort of looking forward for the future, that's really sort of slowed inactivity-wise in terms of neurons wiring, firing in the psychopath. So it accounts for really what this manifests for then in the individual is a lack of conscience, a lack of remorse, oftentimes a lack of fear, a lack of emotions or even emotional like reactions, feelings, or even vocabulary that reflects this. So, they can learn to fake empathy. They can learn to act startled. They can learn to act as if, but it's not genuine. It's not coming from the person. It's going from a very deliberate and calculated set of managed behaviors that they have taken on very quickly and with facility, like a second language, like a second nature. So to them, they just quote unquote, see if this. So they know this about themselves. I think that they know, that they are different in their early teens, and then especially when they see other people having relationships and like holding hands, and they're like, what is up with that silly stuff? Let's go, let's go to the baseball diamond by the school and empty out all the white chalk for the bases, and like let's just throw a bunch of and break a bunch of tools. These are your derelicts. These are going to be your people who violate rules, who violate laws. They might just walk up on a construction site and go, oh, cool, look at this toilet. This isn't nailed down. I would love this. All they see is what they want. And things that you would just even common sense. You might see like a bunny rabbit nest outside, and maybe a psychopathic child would say, oh, great, let me run home and get my shoebox and bring these all in and do whatever to them. These children will do, different things. So really where other people would be concerned, some sort of conscious or common sense is going to kick in. Yeah, don't pet the snake. When something is growling at you, that means that they're angry and going to charge. A psychopath doesn't get that fear. I think that they will try to maybe set up situations in their life where it might come close to fear, like their heart pounding, or their muscles pumping, or something like that, where maybe for an intrigue for them would be like a fear of getting caught. Someone who's married, who's saying they're going to the conference this weekend, and they've got another relationship on the side, and then the wife is like trying to call them, and they don't get a response, and so the wife, they know that then they're going to be knocking, or they're going to show up, and then they'll have these very close encounters that sort of will get their heart racing, which will, I think, try to give them the experience of fear to feel alive. So this is what they do. It's just, once again, so if you can equate it, I think, to equate it to a parallel within you. So like you might love to cook people food, and then, oh my gosh, that looks so delicious, and you're like, oh good, you like it, I hope it's okay, so you might be rewarded by that might be a reward loop. But realize with a psychopath, you might have a reward loop that is very unhealthy for you, which is causing you concern, not improvement, not ease of living, but is causing you to be ensnared and really sort of hooked. And oftentimes what becomes paranoia, I think, for a lot of people when they begin to eke out and suss out the psychopath, because if there's abuse with them, something that you can't really, I think it would really start for a lot of men or women who are in relationships, is that they get this sneaky feeling that something is not right. In other words, they're like, wow, you didn't sweat, you didn't sweat a bit when you did this. You weren't afraid. You have like focus of steel. You are amazing. Or things like, they'll just have different things. So people will, once they're exposed to this individual, they'll see and then sort of be incorporated. I mean, the manipulation begins from day one. There is, I do feel a psychopath is very aware of the supply or the targets that they're going to take. And really, I think that's really how they see people. Like a viewer so aptly stated about their business and how the psychopath, in other words, like all their hard work, all their accomplishments, all their ingenuity that went into it, and the psychopathic female, all they cared about is what's in it for me. In other words, what kind of check am I going to get? What kind of house am I going to get? What kind of car? In other words, they're all looking for some sort of, oftentimes, very materialistic, glib, and superficial things that they want. But for a psychopath, it will help to promote more of the image that they want. So a psychopath will just sort of feel that, I think that they feel that the world is their oyster and nothing really applies to them. They can do whatever, whenever, to whomever, and they're always on the up and up. So for a lot of people, this might be disguised as a high achiever, someone who's very driven, a go-getter, someone who is relentless, someone who doesn't need to sleep much. I have insomnia, whatever it is. You'll see oftentimes though, but a red flag would be that they have sort of an inhuman capacity for multiple intimate relationships. In other words, they're violating the trust and sort of like, we're loyal, we're committed, it's only us. You know, these people will have second and third lives. In other words, they'll have a whole nother relationship that could be with someone that's distinctly the same or different, but that has different things that will sort of be as a camouflage. So if one supply has a white picket fence, a dog, and 3 kids, and that's what they need, then they're going to go ahead and then vote in that relationship for them to move in on. If they have another relationship where the other person might be professional, no kids, likes to go out and have drinks or something, then they'll have, a relationship there. And then there might be somebody else who is very collegiate and scholarly. And it might seem like it's all platonic, but night for the psychopath, wait until they turn that person. So I think the psychopath really does, quote unquote, turn people, meaning turn them into a specific sort of attraction or relationship hook. It's not like the others. This one is different. And it becomes abusive in the fact that it is deceptive. It is manipulative. It is deliberate, pre-calculated, and planned. In other words, like our viewer so aptly stated, you have a trajectory for your business or your relationship or something that is you are working on. And then the psychopath wants to take you on as sort of a shell partner, if you will, because you make them look good. You make them look good at the table. You make them look good at the meeting. You make them look good on their spreadsheets. Maybe there's other files that you trade back and forth. So, they're looking for people who are very instrumental and utilitarian for them, devoid of the relationship. So they will use whatever tactics to overpower, to have power over. And not just like, well, I know better than you and I'm going to make the decisions because that would be only common sense, but more in the lines of psychological adjustment of focus, interpretation, and meaning of words, and the way you interact with meaning at large and communication. Because a psychopath, they will gain through word salad, through just sort of these manipulation tactics like neuro-linguistic programming, the way that they use their body language and then their commands to people. They really have a way to get right into that reptilian limbic brain of others. So imagine it like someone who has X-ray vision, that they can see a little bit more details and in depth into the personalities of people. They can read people. They can size people up. I mean, you've heard all this. They can see a group walking, and they'll be able to say which one has the little bit of slump in their shoulders, which one has the low self-esteem, which is the real emotional one, which is the real one that is like the low-hanging fruit, the cherry picker that they can just go, whoop, this will be utilitarian. So it's strictly on that basis. I really do feel, in a very objective and concrete sense, just like, I need a door handle. You've got a door handle. Perfect. I need a computer. You've got a computer. Perfect. You've got a garage. I need a garage. I mean, this is what they're going to do. And there's no sort of emotional bond. They don't have a bond of trust, just like you might experience where there's someone who you really feel that you can trust, you really have a bond with. Anybody have a relationship like that? This is going to be very different because the constitutions of the trust bond are absent in the psychopath. So think of it like a cake mix. there ain't no sugar in the cake mix. There ain't no flour. There ain't no yeast. In other words, there is no emotion of love, or of bonding, so of affection, of caring, of identifying with you as a human being, of having those momentary glimpses or that feedback loop, which is so reassuring or comforting, just of a healthier relationship. A psychopath, in my understanding, they don't have those sort of romances, but they will come off as very charming and romantic. The psychopath will profess and say to you that they just sort of hear the music. They don't really hear the words. So, and I think that they must observe that not only with music, but, with movies and things like that. So they're usually rooting for something else in a movie other than yourself. If anything, they might be fascinated by people who are like them in their movies. In other words, look what they did there. Look, I can identify with that. And so they'll become fascinated or interested. Or fascinated and interested when they should be concerned about something. When they should be concerned, perhaps about you, your health, the children, the business. And then there's this stunning, lack of anxiety. Oh, it's all going to be okay. I mean, it's just, they're very smooth, not stressed, i.e. they have ice water running through their veins. So that's why they're coming off like this. They are not concerned. They're not freaked out. They're not going to jump out of their skin, if their dog just broke its leg. It's just kind of like the same thing as if you had maybe torn a piece of paper. Oops. They don't really feel anything. So you have to understand the gravity and the breadth to which this then sort of how it translates into relationship with you, and then what can then translate as what is abusive, exploitative of your vulnerabilities. And I would say the abuse of a female psychopath is really, it's these problems, realize the cause and when this started and the cause that creates this effect, to help break the pattern. Break the decision to say, I'm going to lean into this rather than lean out of it instead. Because there is a very much a strong tinge of addiction that will come in the development of a psychopathic relationship. Usually for a psychopath, they'll want to get you really hooked and addicted. And oftentimes that limbic brain, they have a sort of, think of it like a control helm, like a joystick that they just go, they just sort of plant it in your limbic brainstem and just sort of maneuver it like a joystick. This make you happy, make you sad, make you paranoid, and then, oh, feel this, feel how, soft this is, feel how, and then meaning that will then become not only, romance, but it'll have all these other effects to it that will incorporate part of the addiction. In other words, they might, you might love their hair, or the smell of their hair. And then, so they'll sort of put this feeling into other places, if you will. It's very odd. It sounds very strange to discuss it. And we'll do more videos on this, but it's really sort of it creates an adjustment or change of meaning, the way that you feel. In other words, or interpret information, which then becomes abusive because of the very element of deception. They're fooling you in plain sight. In other words, abuse of your heart. In other words, your loyalty, your commitment. A lot of people have these very close relationships where they had maybe a child with them, or sharing a business, or a place of living, or this, they'd really become very quickly intertwined in usually it's like really the best. Like there's always like, was amazing. There's this passion. There's this epiphany. There's this, oh my, this satisfies everything. And the person just feels like they've come home. Like this is heaven on earth for some reason, or it's fun and exciting and thrilling and like the movies. And, how many people have had all these experiences and they felt that they were just on the tail of a dove, just, and this dove is just sort of, this, but you don't realize that the dove is sort of like a black swan and it's sort of tarring your feathers. And you didn't realize this. They're just sort of, through the deception. So the deception meaning the pathological lying, meaning oftentimes the coddling effect that they will use to sort of numb and anesthetize their prey. They are intraspecies predators. So it's usually there's a feeling that they're going to give you, which is like mind altering, a drug, an opiate. This is your endorphins going, this is your oxytocin going, but then also there's a little bit of self-reproach sort of added in there, which makes it very potent. In other words, you becoming aroused by your own corrosion. You're becoming aroused and stimulated and thrilled by your own demoralization and your own corruption. So it becomes like a very high level self-inflicted torture or removal from self, if you will. It's sort of rewarding in abandonment of self at a very horrific level, because the horrific level is the neurochemicals which then are surging and are secreted, the cortisol, which then creates almost like someone's running on this very high caliber stress, paranoia, concern, and then they're acting out of character, engaging in high risk behaviors. They're organic, natural processes. They're cognitive processes. You can't focus. You can't focus on your work. You can't focus on your homework. You can't focus on your studies, taking care of yourself, cleaning, whatever it is that's the normal self-sustaining or self-care becomes obsolete. It becomes crippled. Really, that self-care mechanism, it becomes more of like, how do I resolve this fear that's in my environment? And so a self-abandonment, if you will, which is very treacherous, especially when it comes things like things that you need for yourself, like your income, like your support system, like your relationships, like your religion, like where you live, like what you've saved, what you've worked for. All these things are up for targets for a psychopath just to sort of see, if they can then get a reaction out of you, and then the removal of the stability, sort of all that they had tortured you, and then finding out. So the body goes through a surge and a detox. So that you have to understand the cause that's created this effect and realize that things will calm down. You have to stop leaning into the pattern that is mirroring or has caused you to continue to think like this person. I would say sort of like an osmosis, and realize the habits and things that you had picked up, and realize that this is not going to be life-serving for you. It will be life-altering. It will be life-changing, and oftentimes really bring out a worst of somebody. So as we're talking about before, a psychopath is pejorative in nature, which means they make things worse. So, you just have to understand the cause that creates this effect, and then say, do I really want my outcome to be this way? Do I want to allow this derision? Do I want to allow this corruption? Do I want to allow this personal self-abuse? In other words, you have to see that it's going to lead someplace where you absolutely positively do not want to go. If you cannot have that rock bottom moment, and instead you're trying to make excuses for them, which they might, they might have been very wonderful to you in a lot of ways. And this oftentimes is very important for you to acknowledge and validate. They might have been very, very good companions, very good business partners, very good romance, very, but don't let that underscore what the ultimate is, what has really happened. So, and also that, your own vulnerabilities are really important for you to become aware of and protect, and then stop the pattern of engaging in this. Becoming more self-protective and self-preserving is going to be required. And of course, break the relationship with this female. It's your buddy, peace and harmony with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace in, peace be with you, and have a beautiful day.